Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to another Wednesday night. Hollywood Interviews presents. Tonight we got Professor J. He's a children's book author. He's got a series of books, and then he's also got a new line coming out. So, everybody give him a big welcome. How you doing?
I'm doing okay, man. A little bit of discomfort. I had a minor procedure done Monday, but other than that, I think as long as I remain still right here where I am, you won't hear me yelp out in pain or anything like that. So I think I'll be all right.
Well, I think something we got here at Hollywood Affiliate Marketing Services, I think we got something that you can use actually if you are in discomfort. I'll talk to you about it after the interview.
Hey, that'll be
It,
perfect,
it,
man.
it, it worked miracles on my ankle. I'll tell you that much.
Good deal. Good deal.
All right. So I guess why don't you introduce yourself? Let everybody kind of know who you are. I know you're a new member, so go ahead and just kind of let the people know, and then we'll get into kind of talking about what you do.
Okay, good deal. My name is Professor J. I go by professionally Professor J, the author. Um, I'm an educator in the Houston Independent School District. Was raised up here in Houston in the Hiram Clark area. Schooled in HISD. Proud graduate of Madison High School. I was
Oh,
major for Madison. Uh, so raised up right here in the community, and now I'm teaching. It's a little unusual, and I say unusual because I'm one of the few men in the entire district who teach pre-K. And
hmm.
for I think like 2, 3 years, I was the only black man in the whole school district who
Oh
taught
wow.
pre. Yeah, and so those experiences as a teacher are actually what led me to on the path to becoming Professor J, not just being the educator, but being what we now know as Professor J, the author.
Nice. I mean, I guess, even for me growing up, I didn't see a lot of male teachers, period. My father's actually a male teacher. They even call him man teacher, from Jamaica because there's, so little that you even get the title man teacher. So that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, that's really unusual, man. I know I didn't see my first male teacher until middle school, and that was in the sixth grade. So um, many times administrators have asked me about moving up to different grade levels and things like that, and that's not what I want to do. There's a very big, I don't want to get on my soapbox or anything, but there's a huge misnomer that in pre-K that all we do is sit around and watch Barney and eat fruit snacks all day. And a lot of people see pre-K as just kind of like another form of daycare, but that's certainly not what I do. And the other teachers at the schools that I've taught at, we teach. We
Yeah.
teach. We actually lay the foundation that these children need. We, make this progression from letter knowledge to letter sounds to being able to blend and form words and things like that. And so um,
So
that's
like
part.
for phonemics, I believe, instead of
Um,
just sight words, you're looking at groups of letters to be able to actually process the words.
Phonemic awareness. You're right.
Wow.
That all of that encompasses. We There's a saying that we have in my classroom. It's a double negative, and we always say we never do nothing in professor's class.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, what that means is we're always doing something.
Mm-hmm.
And so, with that being said, we don't do worksheets. We don't that a lot of that old school stuff that people used to do back in the day. We are really strict about having hands-on activities that are meaningful to the content area that we're teaching. And again, those experiences, just being in the classroom and selecting books that were part of the curriculum and things like that, I would see various stories that were really great stories to expose children to. But to me personally, there was a lack of uh, brown skin and black children in those stories. And so I decided that I wanted to take some stories in a different direction.
Okay, so that's how you got started then.
That's how I got started. That's how I got started.
Okay, I guess, do you share your books with your class, or I guess, how do you get out there?
I do. Lucky for me, because we follow what we call thematic units. So every month we have a different theme that our learning is centered around. So like, I'm literally not going throughout the whole school year, doing like these shameless plugs for my books, and things like that. But we do have a learning unit that we do that revolves around fairy tales. And my first two books are reimagined, reimaged retelling of a couple of classic fairy tales. And so what we will do is I will read the original to the children, and then I'll read my version to it, and then we do a Venn diagram, and we talk about the things that are different between those two versions of the story. And then of course in the center we list all the things that are the same. So yeah, I don't think ever since my first book dropped in 2016 that there's ever been a time where I haven't, shared my work with my class that I taught.
Okay. So what are your books called?
The first book was called Jacques. I wish I had a copy of it here with me. I actually got the new book because that's the one I'm promoting, but I can tell you a little bit about both of them. Jacques is Jacques, and there's this running joke amongst my fan base, if you will, because a great many of them, they call it Jacques or they call it Jacques, and I've heard that so many times now to where I just tell people all the time, I don't care what you call him Jacques, call him Jacques, call him Jacques.
Yeah, I was looking at it too and thinking the same thing. I was like,
yeah, it's the French pronunciation of Jacques is really all it is. And so it's pronounced Jacques. I may do a special edition at some point in time where I'll have, kind of like the J-O-K in parentheses, so people can see that that's the real pronunciation. But Jacques tells the story of little Jacques. Henry Earl Williams is his name. And he lives with his single mother. His father is recently deceased. And basically the story of Jack and the Beanstalk is told from an African American perspective, and using expressions and things of that nature that are unique to our culture without alienating other cultures who may be interested in or want to purchase the book. I know I talked to you a couple of days ago, and I wanted to make it clear that I did not write these books just to be bought by Black people. I want the books to be enjoyed by white children, Black children, Hispanic children, Asian children, children of all cultures. And in fact, there is a disclaimer, if you will, in the beginning of both Jacques and my new book that, that explains that the story is written so that it will open the eyes of other cultures who may not be familiar with some of the things that we say in our culture, some of the things that we do. And so in Jacques, you see, again, the same story. But here's the thing. Obviously, if there's a little poor Black kid and his mom says, okay, our only possession that we have that may be worth anything is our cow. Here, go sell it and get some money so we can have some money for food. And he comes back with 5 allegedly magic beans. The response from the Black mother is not going to be anywhere near the response, of the white mom. The response of the Hispanic mom is not going to be the same as the white mom and the Black mom, and things like that. So quite naturally, when Jacques returns home with these magic beans, his mom is like, boy, have you lost your mind? And that sort of thing. So it goes on. It does not deviate too far from the original story, but it does enough, such as that it puts a unique spin on it, and things like that. So that's that one. And then there's my new story, which is called Go-Go and the Unfortunate Grit Incident.
Go-Go and the Unfortunate Grit Incident. Okay, can you put that a little bit closer?
Yeah,
so everybody can see that. I was actually going to ask you if you have paper copies, or if they're all virtual.
No, you can get this book. Both of my books are available on Amazon. You can get them in ebook format. You can get them as an actual tangible copy for your child. In fact, I did do one special edition of Jacques. We did it as a coloring book. So anybody who has kids who like to color, and they may want to see Jacques dressed in some different colored pants and hat and shirt and things like that, they can certainly go ahead and do that. And so I did that one. And then, of course, there's now this thing with Go-Go and the Unfortunate Grit Incident, which is my take on Goldilocks and the Three Bears.
Oh, wow.
Whereas Goldilocks is now known as Go-Go. And she's called
that. Do you do the art?
Say it again.
Do you do the art in the book as well?
I do not do the art. The art is done by a gentleman by the name of Abraham Powell. Abe lives out in Alabama. Really, really talented artist who did the work in this book, man. I went through, I love to tell the story about how I went through 4 other illustrators before I finally stumbled upon Abe. Yeah, it's really, really difficult when you are trying to get somebody to get inside your head and see what you see and see your vision for how you want your characters to look. And the first 4 people that I dealt with, they were submitting stuff, and I was just like, no, that's not it. And they would try again, and I'd be like, no, that's not it. And at first I will go as far as to say it was even like that with Abe, until he said, I'll tell you what we need to do. We sat down and I literally read the manuscript of the book cover to cover.
Wow.
With him. And it was after that he literally did just what I described. He got into my head and he could see, okay, this is how Go-Go is supposed to look. This is how the 3 bears look. This is what their home looks like and things like that. And so that's where we are. So Abe together, I submitted some of the initial artwork that he did to my publisher, Dr. Rhonda Branch Yerby, who is a beautiful, beautiful publisher of African American works. And she was like, yeah, you need to hire this dude right away.
Nice.
Yeah.
Looks like we got a question here. You may have covered this already, but we got one from Nicole Zinkfence Pearson. She says, what inspired you to write these books?
Hey, Nicole.
For anybody that's tuned in a little late, maybe just catch them up one more time.
Oh, no problem at all. Basically, being a teacher and reading a lot of the material that was considered required reading for kids at my grade level, I just felt, to say that there were no books that had Black characters, and that's not true. And you and I talked about this the other day, Nick. There's a book, The Snowy Day by Ezra Jacques, that's been on the New York Times bestseller list for children's books for a billion years now. So I would be lying if I said that there were no books that had African American characters. I just felt like there weren't enough. And I could continue to gripe about it.
Also something that you can relate to.
Right. And even, in that case, and I can ask anybody who's on this forum with us tonight, when was the last time you actually saw a fairy tale with Black characters in it? Any of them. Hansel and Gretel, Jack and the Beanstalk, Goldilocks and the Three Bears, you know,
Little Red
all of
Riding
that
Hood.
stories, you know, and so I thought to myself, wouldn't it be cool if, and we even did a couple of hashtags that I do when I promote my books. You know, I have one, you know, it's like hashtag, what if Jack was black? What if Goldilocks was black? You know, and that sort of thing. And so we see these stories being told from the perspective of little black kids. You know, Jack is a little black boy, Goldilocks is a little black girl. And so there are cultural differences, and we shed a light on the fact that it's okay to be different. It's okay to
Kind of like a Mr. Rogers approach. Because he allowed children to, you know, be mad and sad, and you know, with the way the world was, I think back when Mr. Rogers was, you know, on TV, you know, there was war and things like that they'd be worried about. Everything's not always, you know, happy. So they actually understood that they could, you know, feel these different emotions. So yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense.
Can I just to piggyback on that, man? I will never forget. Obviously, Mr. Rogers was a part of, you know, my childhood, as he was many other kids. I'll never forget. There was an episode of Mr. Rogers where the mailman, his letter carrier was a black guy, and he actually put a wash tub out in the middle of his front yard under his treehouse. Mr. Rogers did, and they would dip their feet into the water. Sadly,
I remember that.
Yeah, sadly, back in the day, there would be these horrible stories told about black people, black children, black men and women, that the reason why the swimming pools were segregated because you know, if you were white and you jumped into that swimming pool, some of the black would rub off on you and that sort of thing. And Mr. Rogers was so good, man, at addressing those horrible things that had been accepted as truth. And he addressed them head on, but he addressed them in a way that children were able to understand and know that, you know, that those horrible things that children were being told. Because here's the thing, and I really, really believe this: children do not come into the world with that sense of hatred, dislike, disdain, disgust, any other dish you can think of for other cultures. They don't come into the world with that. Those are taught behaviors. And I will always have a great deal of respect for Fred Rogers for shedding a light on those things and letting people know that, you know, inside we're all the same. It's what you have going on inside that truly defines who you are, not something as ridiculous as your skin color.
Yeah. You know, I think I've been fortunate to be to come from Jamaica, and you know, there's a stereotype that everybody's probably dark with dreads and smokes marijuana, all this kind of crazy stuff. But the motto of the country is "out of many, one people." So, like the whole country, out of many is one people. So it doesn't matter, you know, especially, you know, you're in the United States and everything like that, where you have this huge melting pot, and everybody wants to be patriotic and, you know, whatever. But it should be that everybody should be one, you know, it's the United States. So, you know, hatred, like you said, you know, a child is born, they just care about playing with the other kid. They don't care about, you know, what color you are, what sex you are, what nationality you are. They just want somebody to play with.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. I see somebody actually just chimed in and said that hatred is
learned.
Learned and things like that, and that's really true.
Got another one. So do you change the names of the characters since your books are related to fairy tales?
Yes and no. I'll start with Jacques, for example. Of course, Jacques is French for Jack. So it stays true to that naming scheme, if you will, and that sort of thing, because he there's somewhat of a shout out that I did in Jacques. Jacques' full name is Jacques Henry Earl Williams. And there are some people in my life who I kind of gave a shout out to, somewhat of a dedication,
Okay.
by naming him that. And Gogo, the thing that Gogo dislikes the most about her name is her first name is not Goldilocks. Her first name is Goldie. Her last name is Locks. Her full name is Goldie Sharon Yvette Locks. And I did that purposely because my godmother, whose name was Sharon Nellums Gooseby, passed away about 3 years ago, and I wanted to honor her in the story. And so in doing that, I gave Goldilocks that long drawn out name and that sort of thing. And so she, because she does not like her full name, she prefers to be called Gogo instead. And then Gogo is also a nod to the fact that she's always on the go. She's always doing something. Gogo is extremely nosy. Gogo is, and I actually kind of like that about her, that Gogo says what everyone else is thinking. She does not have any filter whatsoever. She will ask, why is your car always dirty? Why are you breathing so hard after you just walked from point A to point B? You know, why you got on them two little pants?
That sounds like me when I was a kid.
See, and many kids are like that, and I think that's just a part of even the wonderment and the enchantment of being a kid that, is kind of being lost with this current generation, and maybe even a couple of generations before now, is that we're in such a hurry to rush kids to grow up and things like that. And that also has a lot to do with why I favor, don't get me wrong, whatever format people choose to purchase the book in, I'm grateful for that purchase. But I'm working with a really good friend of mine by the name of Dominique Smith, who is a filmmaker based out in Florida, and he suggested that I come up with what we call the Tangible Literacy Initiative. And that's to kind of move our kids away from everything being on a tablet, everything being on a smartphone, everything being delivered to them electronically. Let's go back to knowing this is the front of the book. This is the back of the book. This is the spine of the book. This is the book. When I open the book, I'll see the pages. Written on the pages are the words. The person who writes the words in the story is the author. The person who drew the pictures is the illustrator. The person who puts the book together so it can be sold is the publisher. The person reading the book to you is the narrator. We don't do that anymore. That's becoming, and I don't want to call it a lost art because it's not art. That's just necessary learning. And things like that. So, I know I probably,
I've never thought about the evolution of all that. I've never thought about the evolution of all that, because when I was in school, they obviously taught that. So I didn't even really think, because I think towards the end of elementary or whatever, we started getting those colorful Macs or colorful Macintosh computers. And then pretty much from there, it's all typing, and, now everything's literally at your fingertips. There's not really, points in going to the library. And then when you get a pandemic now, people aren't going to the library. People aren't, picking up stuff. And, kids are at home and they expect them to log into email, and, you get all these crazy things going on. So that's actually a pretty good point. And it kind of goes into this next question. It says, would you consider making a cartoon series out of your books?
Yeah, absolutely. I would definitely like to see these characters be brought to life. Me having a background in theater and things like that, I already kind of have the voices of Go-Go and even the Three Bears, kind of floating around in my head as to how they would sound, how they act, what their personalities are. and things like that. And not only that, but I think it would really give people an opportunity to have a better idea of where I'm going in the story. And when I say that, I mean there's a lot of different shout outs and what they call Easter eggs in this story that relate to Houston culture. I was brought up in the Hiram Clark area, for example. Go-Go lives in Hiram Hollow. The Bears, we have Pearland here on the outskirts of Houston. The Bears live in Bearland. So there's that part of it. There's a little joke about there was kind of like we thought we were going to somewhat lose one of our the greatest pillars of black business in Houston a few months ago when Frenchie's moved from their location where they had been for a gazillion years. They moved a little bit down the street to make way for expansion of my home church, which is Wheeler Avenue Baptist Church. And so there's even a running joke in the story about Wheeler Avenue Baptist Church and Frenchie's. So in real life, Frenchie's just kind of moved a little bit down the street to accommodate our new sanctuary at Wheeler. In my book, the Bears go to Willie Avenue Baptist Church, but the church and the chicken place have actually merged into one. So you can literally get out of church. As you're exiting church, you can go through the drive-thru and you can pick up your chicken on the way home.
You might be onto something.
Yeah, absolutely. And that sort of thing. So those little things, if you know Houston culture, you will definitely pick those things up. I packed a lot into a not so long story. And so there are some things, the one thing that I'm probably the most proud of is the book has a twist ending. And that twist ending is that it has a double ending. And as the parent reads the book to the child, they can give the child the option of, okay, well, which one of these endings do you want to choose? Or as the child becomes more fluent in their literacy and they read it, then they can choose which one of those endings they want to use. And I see somebody saying they're getting hungry with all this talk about chicken. Well, guess what? The endings of the story are based on whether a person prefers salt and pepper or sugar in their grits. So if they prefer salt and pepper, the ending turns out one way. If they prefer sugar, which I have no idea why anybody would want that, but if they prefer sugar, then the book ends another way. So it's literally a throwback to in my early days of learning how to read, we used to have what they call which way books. And in those books, you would read a certain passage and then it would say, okay, if you want the character to do this, go to this page. If you want the character to do that, go to another page. So that's where that comes from. But again, it's centered around which one of those two ways do you prefer grits? Are you team salt and pepper or are you team sugar?
That's pretty cool. And then you kind of get 2 books, 3 books in one, because maybe you want to see what the alternate ending is. So then you read the other story. And then I guess also, since you have a remix to these fairy tales, since you got a remix to these fairy tales already, it's like a remix in the remix.
You know what? That's the first time I ever heard somebody say that, but you're exactly right. You're exactly right, because whoa, you just really dropped something on me, because in the original story, and I think it's pretty much this way every way that it's ever been told, basically once the bears discover Goldilocks in their home, she runs away and she's quote unquote never heard from again.
Mm-hmm.
And that sort of thing. Whereas in as you said, this remix of a remix, even the ending is different, and we do know what happens to her in the end. We do know that she learns a valuable lesson. She learns about that maybe sometimes she shouldn't always I was that child. I was the what comes up comes out child, and she learns that maybe she doesn't need to always blurt certain things out at her own utterance. She learns that if mom tells you you shouldn't go, here, there, and thither, and yon, that maybe you need to listen to what your mom tells you to do. And so by the end of both of those endings, either way, whether you go salt and pepper or whether you go sugar, she gets a lesson that she learns by the end of both of those two narratives.
So there's morals to your story then.
Definitely. I wanted to, again, you get a lot in a small package. Even the cover.
Yeah, it's a very interesting cover. It's like an old school wanted sign that you'd see like up on the cartoons from back in, when Looney Tunes was out. It's on the tree.
Absolutely. And those are just little gems that I picked up along the way. And I mean, if you were an illustrator, Nick, you would definitely be one of those kind of people that I could say were in my head, because you're exactly right. And it's even deeper than that when you think about the fact that Goldilocks, she broke into the bear's house. So she wasn't really totally innocent in that whole story. Not only did she break into their home, but she tore everything up while she was there. And so in my iteration of the story, you're able to see things from a different perspective. It's not, she progresses from, she sees the porridge, and then she sees the chairs, and then she sees the bed. And there are no, she does not break chairs. I'm not going to give you the whole thing, because I want people to go and buy the book. But the whole situation with the chairs, that part of it is not there. There's something different instead. The whole thing again with her running away and never being heard from again, that's not how my story ends, and that sort of thing. So there's technology in the story that is incorporated into one of those endings, and that sort of thing. So it's if I can say so myself, man, I've had a lot of feedback from parents who have read the story to their kids, and they're like, I don't know who was laughing more, me or my kid. And that
seems like it'd be really fun to do with your kid, because instead of you just reading it like bedtime or something like that, you get to ask questions instead of the kid just listening and then they go to sleep or whatever the case may be. Like, so what would you want? Would you choose this or would you choose that? And then you can it keeps everybody more engaged.
That's what I wanted. That's exactly what I wanted. I want the parent to stop every now and then and ask some of those, what we as teachers call higher order thinking questions and things like that. Well, why do you think she does that? Where do you think she's going? She's jumping on her bike. Where she's going? What is she gonna do? Why do you think she asks so many questions?
Yeah, gets the brain going, critical thinking, all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. I feel like if I can embed all of that, without and still deliver a fun story without, because let's face it, kids are in school for 7.5 hours a day. The last thing that they want to do when they come home and they're having a bedtime story read to them is to have to go through yet another lesson. But if you can read them a story and you can get them to really just activate that higher order thinking and without them even thinking about it, this is not a lesson, wow, what is going to happen next? which one of the bowls of grits is she gonna like the most, and that sort of thing. If we're able to reel kids in like that, then I think I've done my job.
Yeah. So I guess you seem like you got a lot of experience. So I guess how many years have you been writing?
Not that many, honestly. It was the most peculiar episode of happenstance I've ever experienced. I wrote Jacques in a hospital waiting room out of just being bored. I wrote it in a hospital waiting room. My auntie, my aunt, down here in Texas, we say auntie. Having a little procedure done. My family is that family. If one person is in the hospital having anything done, we're all there. Yeah. And so we're sitting in the waiting room. I had just gotten an iPad and I'm kind of jotting down some notes and things like that. And somehow or another, it turned into this little short story about what if Jack from Jack and the Beanstalk had been black. And I handed it over to my uncle, who was one of the most genius-minded businessmen I've ever known, a gentleman by the name of Louis Waddell, who, by the way, I mentioned that I went to school at Madison. He owned a convenience store right across the street from Madison, so everybody knew who Mr. Waddell was. But my uncle was like constantly, everything he thought about was business. How can we make money doing this? And I handed the story to him and he read it and he continued to read. He read and he nodded his head. He read and he nodded his head. He handed it back to me and he says, boy, you need to do something with this. You need to do something, get with somebody who can draw a few pictures and stuff like that, man. I believe you can really do something with this. And lo and behold, that first story, we dropped that story in 2016, and
here you are now coming out with a series of books.
Yeah, and here I am now with this series of remixed fairy tales, and that's where it went when I first published it. My publisher, again, Dr. Yerby, I met her at a book signing that she was having, and the very first edition of that book was a mess.
Uh-oh.
It was a mess. Just because I had gone with one of those fly-by-night self-publishing companies and everything, and so the initial copy of it that I had, the margins were off. It was horrible. But I mean, to me, I had arrived because I'm published now and that sort of thing. And she looked at it and she was like, she said, "Baby, this is really cute. Here, let me fix it for you." And
but I mean, all you needed was that kind of boost and that feeling inside yourself to know that you could go do something else. And it's all about improving. I tell people all the time, you don't have to be perfect the first time. You just got to get started, and then from there you need to improve.
And that's exactly what she did. She gave me that
motivation, or that the confidence,
if you will. I want to make sure I still got you.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay. She is the one who put everything on Amazon. She told me how to market, how to basically to bring it to a broader audience is what she did. And I'll always be grateful to her for doing that. And here we are, just like you said, here we are, a few years later, and this second one is out, and I'm really proud of what I've accomplished.
As you should be. So, got a question real quick. It says, which one of your books is your personal favorite and why? It's a
Oh,
good
that's a
question.
hard one. Um, okay, so I'll say it like this. That's almost kind of like asking a mother which one of her children is her favorite.
Oh, I
it,
thought about it like
it,
that.
yeah, it really is. But um, I would have to say Go-Go. Um,
Okay.
just because of the amount of um, I want to say not literally, but like blood, sweat, and tears I put into Go-Go and the Unfortunate Grit incident, and to the point where I wrote that book in 2017. It
Okay.
was not published until November of 2020. And why? Because I literally pushed my release date on that book back like 5 or 6 times. Just because I did not want it to be out until I had that gut feeling that let me know, okay, now's the time to do it. Everything is right. Now is the time. The iron is hot now, strike now. That sort of thing. It was because of the people that I dedicated it to. My mom, my uncle, my godmother, and things like that. I wasn't going to dedicate a piece of literature to them and it did not live up to
The
what I
standard.
thought would be something worthy of dedicating to them. And so Abe would send me certain pictures and I'd be like, nope, that's not it. He would send another set and I'd be like, nah, that's not it.
Just portray what you wanted, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and I got on his nerves, he got on mine. We both got on Rhonda's, and that sort of thing. But I said it like this. I'm a huge Michael Jackson fan. And so my narrative throughout these releases has been, if Jacques was my off the wall, then Go-Go had to be my thriller.
Yeah.
And so everything had to be just right. Everything had to be something that I knew would reel children in, would make them want to read, from the cover art, the illustrations inside, the jokes that, the 4-year-old can understand, the 14-year-old can understand, the 34-year-old parent can understand. And everybody can be laughing at the same joke at the same time. Yeah. I wanted, so yeah.
So you're a perfectionist.
I am.
Yeah.
I am. I just so wanted it to be that on point. And I'm not going to say perfect because I have so much more to learn as an author, but I wanted it to be as close to perfection as I could get it from what I knew about being an author.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes sense. And you want to be satisfied with what you're releasing to the entire world, because that book is going to be there forever and it's always going to be attached to your name, like you said.
Absolutely.
It's your brand. You want it to, make sure it's upholding you and, like you said, the people that it's dedicated to.
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
We got a couple questions piling up. So I guess real quick, how long are your books? About how many pages?
No more than what Jacques and Go-Go are about 25, 30 pages. Go-Go is obviously a little bit longer than Jacques just because of the double ending. And that sort of thing. So of course it does have a few more pages because you have to allot for the narrative, the initial story, and then the narrative that goes along with the first ending, and of course then there's a narrative to the second story and things like that. But they aren't too long to the point where the child will get restless while you're reading the story to them.
Okay. And so I guess with this next one then, it says, have you tried getting your books into curriculums? It would be nice for students to read the books, especially learn about your books during Black History Month. That's actually a good point.
That's a very good point. If anybody who is listening to this interview tonight
And
knows
in the
how to
future,
do that,
because yeah, it's
please
gonna.
provide the necessary intel. And I say that because, and this is really, this really sucks. I cannot promote my book to the school district that I work in because it's considered a conflict of interest.
Makes sense.
So I would literally have to promote to other school districts in the surrounding area, to Fort Bend, to Alief, to Aldine, Pearland, Alvin, and those school districts. So I am definitely looking to get contacts for the people who actually approve required curriculum for their elementary schools and things like that. So if anyone definitely has contacts to where that could be done, I would definitely want to have that done. I think nothing would make an author happier than to see a book that he's written for children on the rack, in the little library, in the pre-K and kindergarten, first grade, second grade classrooms.
Yeah, do they still have book fairs?
So I would love to be able to do that.
Do they still have book fairs? I mean, I know I'm actually in contact with a couple curriculum coaches and principals and things like that. Not even just only in Houston, but in other places. So I mean, that can be discussed, and that's also another benefit of joining this group, because there are people within the group that you could get in contact with. But if I was just wondering, if there are book fairs, would you be allowed to sell your book at the book fair?
Definitely. That's always a possibility. Of course, with the pandemic, all promotions for books are really kind of difficult, if you will. When I did my debut release, when I did Jacques, I had like literally 3 book signings at a Half Price Books location, and they were really, really great. They were really successful. They had really great turnout and things like that. But with social distancing and things like that, that's just something that's really difficult to do right now. So my team I do have like a little team that we get together and we brainstorm about how we can do some things that will allow us to interact with people in a really safe way and things like that. We've talked about maybe even doing a drive-by book signing where I'll literally have like copies of the book there and the people can just drive by and I sign it really quickly. They make their payment and we give it to them in the car and things like that. So we definitely have some things coming down the pipeline. We just want to be sure that with everything that's going on now, that we do it in the safest manner possible.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So we got another question. It says, how many books have you written? I know you were saying also that you plan to go into adult books as well, so maybe you can expound on that.
Okay, yeah. I have written 1, 2, 3, 4. I've written 5 books. 2 of them are published. My very first book that I am going to publish, I actually wrote it as it was a component of a final exam that I had to do my senior year in college. And it was for a literacy course that I was taking. And that's what we had to do for our final exam. We had to write a children's book. And I've gone back and I've looked over that story and things like that. And I'm like, I can really retool that thing and make it available. So that's definitely going to be something that we're going to do in the very near future. That book is actually a parody. I know we all know about the series If You Give a Mouse a Cookie by Linda Numeroff. Very, very popular series of books. If you give a mouse a cookie, if you give a pig a pancake. And I did a parody. I said, what if you give a roach a raisin? And
full of remixes, huh?
Yeah, all remixes. And that story it's a hilarious little take. There's this little roach that's bothering this kid and he wants something to eat, and no matter what the little boy gives him, he keeps saying, okay, well, if you give me this, I'll go away. Okay, well, now that I got this, can I have this? And all of it is like, if you do this, I'll go away, and nothing will seem to get rid of him. And that sort of thing. So I may soon publish that. And then there's another story that I wrote the day that we lost George Floyd. I wrote a book, an entire book in one day. Wow. And I think that it was just from my hurt, my anger, my disbelief, my frustration, and all of that. It prompted me to write my first original story. And we're going to put that one out later on this year as well. In fact, I'm probably going to shuffle some things around and do this one, because the time is now to address some of these things. But I wrote The Truly Sad Tale of Annie and Esraver. And every time I say what that last name is, people are like, wait, what? Esraver, what is that all about? And without giving away too much of the plot detail, that name Esraver, if you spell it out and you look at it very, very carefully, it has significant meaning to the story of this little black girl and this little white girl who are trying to figure out the racial injustices that they see every day, and that sort of thing. Annie and Esraver are good friends, and they don't understand why they're being told that they can't play together. They don't understand why certain things are happening to some of the other characters in the book and things like that. And so that's a story that I read it aloud to my publisher the day that I wrote it. And I think we were probably all in tears by the time I got done with it. And they learned a valuable lesson by the end of that narrative. And so we're going to put that out as well. And then, as you said, we will fast forward to my first book for adults, which is called Front Row Seats. And Front Row Seats deals with the do's, the don'ts, and the please don'ts when people are grieving. Okay. And funeral etiquette and things like that. And I gave it that title, Front Row Seats, because obviously when you're a family and you're attending the funeral of a loved one, no one is immune to that. That's an event that we all experience in life where in most other cases, front row seats are coveted. That's where you want to be. But nobody wants to sit in the front row of a church as they're saying goodbye to a loved one. And so that book deals with the insanely crazy things that people say when someone has passed away, and the insanely crazy things that people do at funerals that they shouldn't do, and things like that. And it does have, there's a bit of humor in it so that it's not too heavy. But it does kind of shed a light on how to not overtax and overburden people who are already burdened with the process of grief.
That makes sense. Okay, so I guess as we kind of wrap things up a little bit, I got one more question from the audience, and then I got another question to close up. So let's go ahead and answer this last question from the audience. It says, what's your advice to a person that's interested in writing Black children's book?
Write it. Plain and simple. Many times I've answered the question, hey, I'm interested in writing a book. I see that you've written a book. I want to write one too. Write it.
Yeah.
And I don't want to sound crass when I say that, but that's really the best advice I can give someone. Nothing is ever going to be done until you sit down and you put pen to paper and you begin to organize your ideas and you see what you have. True enough, it doesn't come as easy for some other people as it comes for me. Some people don't have those same types of gifts and things like that. But the first step to writing a book, as far as I'm concerned, as far as the experience that I have had, is you got to sit down and you got to start to write. You got to go to your place where you get your ideas. If it's when you're in the gym on a treadmill, if it's when you're sitting on the couch, if it's while you're having dinner, if it's when you're in the car having your quiet time or whatever, you have to start thinking about, what is your story going to be about? Who are you trying to reach? But nothing ever gets done unless you actually sit down and write. And so when people say, hey man, I want to write a book, my answer is now and always will be, okay, well, write it. Because the only person who can keep you from doing that is you. Yeah,
and that's the law of pretty much anything. You can't
with
do
anything. You're so right. With anything. Hey, I want to write a book. Write it. Hey, I want to get in shape. Go to the gym. Hey, I want to eat better. Choose a salad over a hamburger.
You got to start doing whatever it is that you want to do. You got to put some kind of motion in place.
Right. When I remember when I first started working out, because I'm a big guy, but I used to be way bigger than this. And I know one of the catchphrases in fitness is, they say all the time, it's either one day or day one. You have to make that choice. So, if you keep going with, one day I'm going to write a book, well, that one day may never come. You have to decide when your day one is. And you have to decide, what story is it that you want to tell? Do you want to tell a story that's already been told and put your own spin on it? Or do you want to show us something new? The choice is yours. But again, my answer is now and always will be, hey, Professor, I want to write a book. Okay, well, write it.
Very true. Well, I mean, yeah, that's very true. And I guess now we're kind of coming up on the end, but I guess, lastly, I want to thank you for coming on and introducing yourself, sharing your work and your craft with the rest of the group and, the rest of the world eventually. Continue to share, your books and everything else that comes out within your series. Well, speaking of which, what is the series called?
Remixed Fairytales.
Okay.
Remixed Fairytales.
Remixed Fairytales.
If we got a little time, I kind of want to read that little disclaimer.
Okay. And I was going to actually say, is there any closing words that you wanted to, to leave us with? So go ahead.
In every one of these remixed fairy tales, you will find this foreword, and it simply says, this book is a unique mixture of colloquialisms and idiomatic expressions that have been traditionally used in African American culture. Passed from one generation to the next, many of these statements have been used, yet misunderstood by many other cultures. I'd like to share them with the reader so they too will understand the joy and laughter that can be expressed by a simple word or a simple phrase. And that's what my aim has been in writing Jacques, in writing Go-Go and the Unfortunate Grit Incident. There are some other stories that I'm going to reimagine in the coming years and things of that nature. I see someone, I don't know if you saw it, I did post the link to the Go-Go story in the chat.
And if not, I'll drop it in the comments afterwards. And and then also, like I said, continue to post it, regardless, so that that people can see it. And I'll also, whenever this hits YouTube, I'll also put it in the description.
Okay. Yeah, that'll be great. Thank you so much. To answer that broad question, the books are both available for purchase on Amazon. They're available in paperback as well as ebook format. And just search for Professor J, or you can put in the full titles and they'll pop up. I know Amazon has been the way to go since we've been in the pandemic. So I definitely appreciate the support.
That's where all the books used to be, sold virtually from back in the day. So that's the perfect place to put it. Right.
And it's time to, again, let's put real books into our kids' hands. Let's let them learn, that we read from left to right and top to bottom, and that sort of thing. And I guarantee you that, I've even embedded sight words in these books, so the kids can become more familiar with them. So I tried to make sure that I touched on every little thing that needed to be touched on in the stories. And so if a child or even their parent is enlightened uh, by reading these stories, and again, I feel like I've really done my job.
Well, we hope that your book can be exposed to, everybody, not just the culture, but, to the world. So everybody can kind of experience the culture and then, make an impact on this generation, on the people who are reading, all the people that I guess you can add value to.
Well, thank you, man. I certainly appreciate you sharing your platform with me. I just want to give a shout out to my family, my amazing, amazing family. It definitely takes a village. My parents are now deceased, but I have an amazing team of aunties and an uncle, aunties and uncles rather, that definitely picked up the baton and ran with it as far as keeping me in line, man. Because even though I'm an adult, I
Understood.
still, kind of step out every now and then. So my amazing family, I love you guys. Fans of my work, I love you guys. Things like that. My Madison family, my Wheeler Avenue family, my biological family, everybody, I love you guys. Thank you for all your support. I definitely could not do any of this if it weren't for you guys.
Well, I definitely appreciate you taking the time to come on and share your story, share your message, share, what you have to offer, and definitely wish you the best.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
All right, and remember, continue to post, and I'll send you your link. All
Okay,
right.
sounds good.
All right.
All right.